Late 2016, I was researching new parks I could visit. I came across Dorney Park, and one thing really stuck out to me. That JoJo roll. I really wanted to ride Hydra and experience it. And after reading and watching all these negative reviews, I decided I would just visit some other time when I was already in that area. Fast forward 3 years later, and I finally made it out to Dorney Park. And it confirmed something that I had known for years. The internet is full of So it's pretty obvious by now that I had a good trip at Dorney Park. But let me be honest, I'm not saying this is the best park I've ever seen or that the thrills match a place like Cedar Point. I'm simply saying that I thought it was very nice and the ride collection was enjoyable, and in my opinion a bit underrated. I have a video that's going to be coming out pretty soon that explains my experience, why I enjoyed it so much, and all the things the park and the staff got right. With that being said, I first wanted to make a video that's focused more on the rides, so kicking off number 10 is a flat ride named Meteor. It opened in 2002, and well, it is what it is. These rides are fun, but I almost always prefer them to stop right about here and change directions. At least then you get a little bit of airtime. Either way, it's not a bad ride and it looks pretty solid. Number 9 is the park's Wild Mouse coaster. Not much to these, but I still have fun on them. And if they weren't built at nearly every park, it probably would have been one spot higher on my list. Which brings me to number 8. And I know some people will agree with me, and there's going to be other people that's going to be pretty mad about this choice, but it's Thunderhawk. I get it. In 4 years, this coaster will be 100 years old. It's also the oldest in the Cedar Fair chain and one of the oldest still operating in the world. It's a piece of history, and I'm all about that. However, I did not get a good ride on this, and after seeing it in person, I had pretty high expectations. I've always loved the feel of an older wooden coaster, from every bump to the train bouncing off the turns. But when I find myself bracing more than laughing, well, that's when I'm ready for the park to call Rocky Mountain construction. And before you judge me too much, could you even imagine this park with a fresh RMC? And this would make for such an awesome layout too. With that being said, I'll admit I only got one ride on it, and it was in the very back row. Sometimes with these older rides, you really gotta know the tricks to get the best experience. I'm certainly open and willing to give it another fair chance next trip, so if you have any tips on the best seat or anything, just let me know down in the comments. Number 6 is Dominator. It's just like Power Tower at Cedar Point, and these are always fun. They use air to send you flying straight up, and then they drop you. Coming in at number 7 is Revolution. It's another flat ride, only this time it doesn't flip you all the way around, so you're going to get some air. It's very similar to Delirium at King's Dominion and some of the others in the Cedar Fair chain, though I do think those are much better. And kicking off the top 5 is Demon Drop. Okay, so a lot of people probably prefer Dominator, and for good reason, but not me. This is the definition of an awesome drop tower. It was built by Intamin and relocated from Cedar Point, and it is such a rare ride. You sit down in this little, I don't even know what you call it, but it's kind of like sitting front row on Kumba, 4 wide and your feet resting on the floor. And can I be honest with you real quick? I stared at this thing for like 30 minutes just watching it and how it worked. First, it's like an elevator that takes you to the top, and then you're loaded onto a track. It sends you forward, and then it pauses for a bit. But then out of nowhere it drops you, and it's so cool because just as you hit full speed and you're nearing the earth, you blink and you're sliding on your back. Then the drive wheels kick in, bring you backwards, and stand you up. This really is such a cool ride, and it makes going to Dorney Park a very unique experience. I really don't want one of these at every park, but I sure hope Dorney keeps those from forever. Number 4 is Hydra. Like I said earlier, this is the real reason I wanted to come to Dorney so bad. I know it sounds like a small thing, but I really wanted to see and experience that JoJo roll in person. I mean, it's not the only reason, it was just the one that stuck out to me the most. Unfortunately, the bad news is that there were 3 rides that I enjoyed more than Hydra. But the good news is that there were 3 rides that I enjoyed more than Hydra. That's always a good thing, right? It means that other rides exceeded your expectations, because trust me, I already had a pretty good idea of what to expect from a B&M Floorless before I even got to the park. And it was exactly what I expected. Solid ride. Without the JoJo, I would say it would be one of my least favorite floorless coasters, but to me that one element puts it right up there with some of the others I like so much. Number 3 is Talon. And I know this is going to upset some people, but trust me, I had it sitting much higher until I started actually recording this. I got to be honest with myself. I took number 2 and number 3 and I asked myself, if I could only ride these one more time, which one would I pick? And because of that, I had to move Talon down one spot. But it's an incredible invert, and to be honest, it's one of my favorites. Just watch my top 10 most forgotten coasters video because I really gave it some love in that one. I've always enjoyed these inverts so much. It's just something about your feet dangling down and all those intense moments it keeps packing over and over again. Unfortunately though, it lacked one thing. Not a particular element, but more of a sound. That's right, I got Possessed at number 2. As much as I love the inverts, Possessed does one thing for me that they just don't. It gets my adrenaline pumping. You rush through that launch, whether it's forward or backward, and it just keeps getting faster. And that scream of the magnetic launch. One thing about me is I'm very drawn to small details that most people could care less about. Here's a few examples. I would rather watch and hear that cord wind up on top thrill dragster than the car itself launching. That bump halfway down Skyrush's first drop, followed by the restraint clamping down at the bottom. You know what? I'm just going to stop right there because I just got an idea for my next video. The point is that I love the scream of that launch and changing directions to go straight up and down. And I'm not alone. This is what my good friend Nathan had to say after we got off Possessed.
Whenever it takes off, it screeches, so it sounds like somebody's possessed, right? But whenever you ride in the back, and you get pushed back on the back end, you just see the ground like take off. Like it looks like the ground's just receding away from you. Oh man, dude, that's such a weird feeling. And it just hits on like a different level.
And the best ride at Dorney Park, in my opinion, is Steel Force. I have very low expectations for this Morgan coaster. My plan was to get one ride in the back, and if I had time, I'd get a quick ride up front. That didn't end up being the case. I rode this thing over and over again. To me, it was everything I thought Magnum XL was going to be. This slow lift hill gives you so much time to look around at the park and all the rides in action. The first drop is decent, especially if you're in the back seat, and from there it's a pretty peaceful ride until you get to the bunny hills. It was right here that Steel Force did something for me that was very rare. I was by myself and every single bunny hill had me laughing so hard. It was the funnest airtime. I would lift up and float for what felt like 1 or 2 seconds before it would slam me back down in my seat and repeat it over and over again. And I laughed so hard every time. It's such a long ride, and maybe I enjoyed it more because I just wasn't expecting that much to start with. Either way, it was great and I had an awesome time at Dorney Park. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, here's a quick clip from my Kings Island video. Have a good one. In 1972, Kings Island would change the roller coaster community forever. They were about to open a racing wooden coaster that was designed to pump fresh air into a dying obsession people once had with roller coasters. It was called the Racer, and the mission was a success, making people fall in love with coasters all over again while also reigniting the nearly extinct coaster wars. But they wouldn't stop there, because this was just the foundation for what was to come. Fast forward just 7 years later, and Kings Island would give the world a beast. The Racer may have reignited the coaster war, but it was that monster, the Beast, that delivered the dagger. And that's basically how the game has evolved since the Beast gave its first rides in '79. Whether you love it or hate it, there's no denying the important role it played in all our favorite rides today. If it had never been built, would we still be building record-breaking coasters?